Hello, my name is Alexander Gross, and I'll be doing a critical analysis on Where Are You Going? Where Have You Been by Joyce Carol Oates. This short story was written in 1966, and it tells about a young girl by the name of Connie who is home alone. Her parents are off at a barbecue across town, and she is visited by an individual by the name of Arnold Friend. Arnold Friend is not who he appears to be. He comes and he talks to Connie as if he is an average teenager her age. But as the story unfolds, we start to see a very sinister, devilish side of Arnold that has no parallel um, in anything I've ever read. His whole appearance is to deceive and to be deceptive. He has a wig on his head. He has his boots stuffed to appear taller. He has lingo and slang that's out of date, but also he has a friend with him in the car by the name of Ellie, and Ellie is trying to hide his face with a radio because as soon as Connie does see him, she automatically realizes that he's not a teenager, that they're old men, and this creates or produces a panic and a sense of urgency for her to get them to leave. But once Arnold realizes that she's onto them, he's not leaving. He begins to manipulate, to cajole. He begins to persuade her very negatively to exit the house. He alludes to burning down the house. He alludes to um, threatening to hurt her family. Um, but he also tells her that he won't enter the house unless if she doesn't try to call the police. So therefore, she has really no way of escape. She's 15 years old. Her main concern is, what outfit she's going to wear to school the next day, not how to fight off an attacker. But this also begs a different question about, women being able to protect themselves at home alone, and the perception that a woman needs a man to protect her. At this age, these questions in Connie's mind are almost, paralyzing. There's a trepidation and fear that is involved in this story that is like nothing I've ever read before. As the story goes on, we realize that Arnold is a very sinister, demonic, individual. If we take the R's out of his name, it spells an old fiend, and we see that he is fiending for Connie. He begins to tell her that he loves her, that she's meant to be with him. He goes on to say very explicit things to her that ultimately invoke a sense of terror. I mean, in the sense that Arnold Friend is a fiend, but he's also a terrorizer. Um, and he knows things that he's not supposed to know. For example, he knew all of Connie's friends by name. He knew where her parents were at. He even knew the names of the lady that was, attending them at the party where her parents were at. So we understand that he had must have done some kind of recon or had some other supernatural insight into this information that would have not been readily available. Connie is comforted by the moment that she remembers seeing him the other night when he said he gave her the high. He gave up the X symbol, which he said was his calling card. Well, X marks the spot. There's a lot of things that can be, divulged from this information, but we also go on to realize that Connie, being young and naive, did not understand that when she was approached by Arnold in this setting, that she really didn't know what to do, and it's a cautionary tale to say the least. As the story ends, Connie is eventually abducted. She does voluntarily open up the door, but she was coerced, and that coercion led her to doing what she thought a 15-year-old was best, and she wanted to protect her family, a family who the story tells us she didn't care much for. And it's funny that when we read the story that her sister she didn't like because she worked at the school, and Connie always kept hearing things about her. The dad was very disinterested. He would come home, eat, watch TV, sleep, and he made no efforts to talk to the children. The mother's primary concern was to making sure that her daughter was not vain, because when the story starts off, that's really what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a very vain young lady. Her biggest concern, like I said, is how does my hair look? So we understand that she grows up immensely in what could have only been no more than 5 to 10 minutes of terror. We see her really grow up, and she makes a comment that Connie says, at that moment, it felt like nothing was hers. It felt like she owned nothing. Not even the own beating of her heart belonged to her. So we see that the terror invoked the fear, and she was stagnant. And she went to the kitchen to use the phone, but she was so terrorized she couldn't even press the buttons. And Arnold Friend became that menacing, that very um, thing that, you know, what we would fear the most. He became the embodiment of that fear for Connie. Um, Joyce Carol Oates has said that she had wrote this on behalf of Bob Dylan. The story chronicles back 2 years further, um, in talking about the Pied Piper of Arizona in 1964. An individual by the name of Charles Smith had murdered three young girls, and by being called the Pied Piper, meaning they were lured away um, for their own device. And Joyce Carol Oates said that this story also led to her telling the story of Connie and Arnold Friend, because we understand that a lot of times when artists are trying to put works together, they have muses, and one of those inspirations was these incidents in Tucson, and also this song by Bob Dylan, "The Blue Eyes," "My Blue Eyed Girl," goes back to the last line of one of the last lines of the short story when Arnold Friend says, "Come to me, my blue-eyed girl." So we know that there is a connection or correspondence in between these names of the song and what was written in there. So this has been my analysis of "Where Are You Going? Where Have You Been?" by Joyce Carol Oates. It is for my assignment in English 354, which is American women writers in the 1900s. Thank you for your time. Uh, Gotta go.